First, it was Rocco Becht to West Virginia. Then it was Joshua Jefferson entering the portal. And now it's Rocco Becht to Tennessee. I can promise you this. Rocco Becht ain't going anywhere unless he is. We're talking about today on Locked On Cyclones.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Shout out to you for being here every single day, making this your first watch or listen of the day. I appreciate it more than you know. Wherever you're watching or listening, be sure to subscribe so we can prove once and for all that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. We got a big one today, folks. A lot of rumor mill kind of situations going on with Rocco Becht headed to Tennessee. Got to break that down first and foremost. Then we're going to talk a little bit about some more media availability around this spring practice kind of period. We're not only going to take a look at the linebackers in the second segment, but then we'll take a look at the running backs to round things out. And trust me, that room is more exciting than even I initially anticipated. So stick around for that. But before we get that far, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Now, I don't know if you know this. This might be new news to you, but Nico Iamaleava and the Tennessee situation was interesting. I guess that wouldn't really be news. That's an opinion. But the fact of the matter is, Nico Iamaleava is no longer a Tennessee Volunteer. We talked about this a little bit earlier this week. And now I believe he is a UCLA Bruin, but the fact that he's not on the Tennessee roster anymore means that, well, he is not obviously occupying the the quarterback position. And so who's going to fill that role? Somebody has to fill that role. Like, I don't think they're allowed to even wheel out a team with, well, actually, they're probably allowed to, but it wouldn't probably be in their best interest for Tennessee to go out there without a quarterback. And so who are they targeting? Seems like they're kind of going after Big 12 guys. There has been a lot of just rumors, and yeah, they're coming from guys like Big Orange Punch on Twitter. So I don't know how much weight this truly has, but Tennessee does need to make a move. And so we're obviously going to look at where there's smoke, there is potentially fire. Names that are being thrown around, obviously Sam Leavitt from ASU, Sawyer Robinson, Josh Hoover, Avery Johnson, and Rocco Becht in there as well. Now, Sam Leavitt and Rocco Becht, the only two to make that Big 12 championship game, but some high-level play from these other Big 12 quarterbacks just as a whole. Of course, I'm sure that Tennessee is not only looking at these five guys, just this is a tweet that I pulled up. And we're going to focus on Rocco because this obviously Cyclone quarterback. I think we can all kind of agree on that. That is a fact right now. Let's start with what could he do for Tennessee? Because I do think this would be an upgrade. Now, when you look at Nico Iamaleava's stats from last season, had 2,600 yards, 19 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and a QBR of 70.5. Now, that TD to interception ratio, that's about a 4-1 there. Taking a look at Rocco and what he did, 3,500 yards, so almost 1,000 more yards than Nico. Had 25 touchdowns, which at its raw is more than 19, but also had 9 interceptions. So the ratio not quite as strong, touchdown to interception ratio, but certainly more touchdowns, more yards, something to look at there. Then QBR came in at 69.4 to Nico's 70.5. So almost the same there. Taking a look at what Tennessee did last year, just for those of us who aren't super involved in the volunteer football side of things. However, their checkerboard stadium, when the fans do that, that is like super cool. We need to maybe be looking at doing something like that in Jack Trice. I don't know if it could be done, but we got red and yellow. They pop, right? They contrast. It's something to look at nonetheless. Tennessee it kind of finished in third last year in the SEC. Not kind of, they did. Texas at 7-1. Georgia at 6-2, Tennessee also at 6-2 there. So not a ton of production in comparison to Rocco. at the quarterback position, but enough to finish the season 6-2 in conference, 10-3 out of conference. Obviously, Iowa State just coming up short of Arizona State in the Big 12 title game, but finishing the season with a 7-2 record amongst the other 3 7-2 teams, Arizona State, BYU, and Colorado. That BYU Colorado game, everyone's saying, was the People's Big 12 Championship, which was kind of a load and super disrespectful to us and Arizona State, to be honest, but literally completely irrelevant for this conversation. I apologize for getting off track. So, would Tennessee stand to benefit from bringing Rocco on board? I think so. I do. I think that Rocco, not only through the air, which we talked about with the 3,500 yards and the 9 interceptions, which is relatively sort of high, but also on the ground. Rocco was one of the best rushers for Iowa State last year in big moments for sure, but also just for the team. Your leading rushers last year for Iowa State, Carson Hansen, Abu Sama, and then Rocco Becht coming in right behind them there. And actually really not like a huge disparity, right? So like your leading running back might have 900 yards and then you're back up with like 300 and then your quarterback's in third technically because we didn't really run a 3-man running back rotation and he's got like 45 yards and it's like, okay, who's third on the depth chart or third on the stat sheet there, but is it really close? This is pretty close here. Carson Hansen at 752, Abu Sama with 587 yards, and then Rocco with 318. That is over 6 times more than Aiden Flora, the 4th leading rusher for Iowa State, who had 53 yards on the year. And that might be the quickest math I've ever done in my entire life. Rocco averaged 3.2 yards a carry last year. So he can get it done on the ground and he makes relatively smart decisions. I know that interception never stands out. And it kind of feels like I'm making like a weird pitch for Tennessee here to come get Rocco Becht. I'm just saying how good he is and how much Tennessee could stand to gain from this. So I don't think that this is necessarily like some just wild thing to even mention. Like I do think that Tennessee gets better with Rocco Becht. Now to look at it from Rocco Becht's perspective or Iowa State's perspective, rather, would he leave to go to Tennessee? Why would he do that? He's got kind of a good thing going here in Ames. And really, it comes down to the money. I don't know how much is getting thrown around. I don't know how much is getting offered. I'm not even going to throw out a number just because I don't have it. But it's probably more than what Iowa State can offer. If we're going to be completely candid here, Tennessee likely able to pay more than Iowa State to a football player. I don't know if that's groundbreaking, but it certainly seems to be fact at this point. Now, will the whole House settlement potentially change things? Maybe. But as it stands right now, which is kind of the moment we're in, right? We live in the moment. Seems like if it were to be important to Rocco to make that much money, Tennessee could get it done. Now, would it be the right fit? I don't know. The West Virginia thing was interesting because obviously his dad and the ties to West Virginia and the whole thing. And there was, I feel like, a little more conversation there. This to me feels like it's just Tennessee shoving money at Rocco. And it's not even in a McDonald's bag. It's just in an open briefcase. Here, take this. Please come play for us. We got rid of our guy. And I'm not going to, I think they made the right decision there. I think I'm allowed to say that. I think that they definitely made the right decision because then you're gonna have this whole divide, and he can sit out, but who can't? Who can afford to be who? I think they made the right decision, but now they find themselves in a difficult spot, and Rocco could be a guy that would be a valid answer for them from Tennessee's standpoint. Now, obviously, Iowa State doesn't want this to happen, and I don't think Rocco will go. Obviously, that's a lot of money, and you can't guarantee that you'll make that much money, even in the pros. And I do think Rocco will be a good quarterback I think he's able to make it, and if he makes it, I think he will be a good quarterback in the NFL. But you can't ever guarantee anything, right? And I'm not even going to put out into the universe what could happen to potentially stop someone from playing football because I don't even want to put it out into the universe. Like I said, we can't let that start circulating just with the football gods and everything. But I mean, you just never know. And so that kind of money, I mean, so much money. I just can't even wrap my head around that. Like, imagine how many times you can go to Chick-fil-A with that much money. Like, that's a lot. So I I don't think Rocco's that kind of guy, but with that number, I could not blame him. Like we were talking about with Joshua Jefferson. If someone the number was allegedly 3 million, and it's like that is so much money. At the end of the day, though, I do think Rocco Becht sticks around. I think he likes what he's built here, or at least is a part of, and the culture here. And he's like kind of the guy, right? He's kind of the guy. Everyone rallies behind him. I certainly think that he can. I think he would be okay with turning down like this massive, massive number for sticking around in Ames. However, he's not the only guy on the football field. There are other positions and other players, and the linebacker room is a room that I have talked about a lot, and we've got a little bit more clarity on what could be going on there. We're talking about it coming up right after this. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. If you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who's delivered incredible results. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps find affordable top-tier freelancers to scale my business efficiently. Visit upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's upwork.com, upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today. So we've been talking about Rocco Becht. We've been actually really kind of focusing on the offensive side of the ball the last couple of really football-based shows here at Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. But let's talk about the linebackers, because this is a group that I really think could be kind of that linchpin to Iowa State's success this coming year. Now, there are a bunch of groups we've talked about. If you want to find out who I think really is going to make a difference this season, or where I think that this could happen, we've got tons of content on the channel. Go hit subscribe so we can prove it's a Cyclone State. But Colby Cratch, the linebacker coach, had some media availability for this spring training, and this linebacker room is going to turn Iowa State into probably a national title contender. I think that is like where I'm at after listening to him speak. And there were some interesting kind of thoughts thrown around, and especially with assistant coaches, and Matt Campbell is definitely this kind of guy too, but there's a lot of just coach speak. Like it's just, we're getting better every day, and this is what we're focusing on, like staying consistent, which we're going to talk about with the running backs. But really like getting better every day. I feel like I heard that a lot. And so that's no diss. That's just what it is. But also, it's just kind of hard to work with here. But there were a couple of nuggets that Colby Cratch threw out here. And I will talk about some of the ideas that were thrown around as well in the end of this segment, because I think they are really neat. So we've talked about how deep this linebacker room is because of those injuries last year. The young guys got a chance to get on the field earlier probably than they normally would have. And so Coach Cratch was like, hey, these young guys are like a year ahead of where they should be just because of how much they've played. That play time really does accelerate development. And so he told them, like, hey, you guys aren't freshmen. You're not redshirt freshmen. You guys are sophomores. There is a level of responsibility now. You guys are expected to perform at this level and or higher, essentially, is kind of the vibes I got from him. And I do think that level of expectation being higher is going to result in not only taking practices harder or more with more intense, more seriously. That was the word I was looking for. But also like that's going to carry over. It's like that additive effect, like we talked about with Chase Soul and his number yesterday. And so that's really exciting to talk kind of about like how the whole room seems to be ahead of where they should be. Obviously, your seniors and juniors are like really good because they're upperclassmen. And he talked a little bit about like how last year those guys who missed time, they just got a different perspective. A lot of film room tape, a lot of like coaching kind of these younger guys and watching during the game. And so those mental reps are big when you're watching from the sideline. All right, what would I do here? What's the call? What's the offensive formation? Like, yeah, there are probably going to be plays, and I'm not saying that this is like super. I don't know. Unfortunately, I'm not on the sideline, but I imagine there are plays when everyone's not exactly super 100% locked in. Okay, there are probably going to be a few of those, but these guys are dogs, and so I'm sure a lot of the time they're out there like, where am I going to go? What's going to happen? Reacting. The more of those mental reps you can get, it's just going to slow the game down when they go out there and actually play. So that is already super exciting. And then those guys come back and they're kind of at that level. And then you look at the young guys who now have a chance to play last year and get those reps and are kind of accelerating through this progression. And now it's like I feel like we just got a lot of depth at linebacker, and that's really, really exciting. And so when asked about it, Coach Cratch was like, the great thing about having all that depth now is we can really hone in on guys' strengths. All right. We can get players in different situations to have success on a field. So maybe you got a guy who's really good pass rusher. Maybe you got a guy who's really good at zone. Maybe you got a guy who's really good at man. Maybe you got a guy who's great run stuffer. Field general, kind of leading the defense. I feel like if you have that trait, that's probably like an A1 trait. But nonetheless, like you've got all these different kinds of guys. And so when I first heard that, my initial thought was, well, I hope we don't kind of start gambling. I hope we don't have guys like one guy that's really good at zone coverage. And so we end up throwing or man is probably a better. No, let's go run stuffer. We got a guy who's really good at stuff in the run. Like he just is like really, really good at it. So we assume they're going to run and we put him out there and he's not as good in zone or man coverage or whatever gets called. And we get burnt for that reason. That was my first thought. Like, I hope we're not taking gambles there. But really what he used that as like, it's an opportunity for this team to learn from the other guys and to close that gap all together. So it's like these highs are like everyone can kind of get boosted up to that point. And then it is also like just putting guys in situations to be successful. So it does kind of sound like that a little bit, but this is also early in the spring. And so a lot of time to develop mentally and get to that kind of that point. The other answer that I really latched onto was he was asked about the reps that, guys beyond the reps, excuse me, the guys who got a chance to play last year, what difference did that make? Just like obviously a lot of that is like, well, got a lot of reps. They got to see a lot of, on-field action, that kind of thing. And this question was like, outside of that, what did playing last year do for these younger guys? And I tell you this because I think it's important. He did not even skip like a quarter beat, right? Like when you're looking at the musical sheet, it's like it's like the notes just were back to back. There was no rest in between, and immediately said like, those guys are hungry now. And that's exciting. So those guys that were out there last year got a chance to see what it's like to play on a Saturday, got a chance to see what it's like to play in some of these big games. Got a chance to see what it's like to make a huge play and feel the roar that is Jack Trice, to feel the Cyclone power essentially coursing through their veins. And so now they want more of it. And I'm not going to lie, it got me amped up. I was like, I kind of want to do that, knowing full well that I would probably be broken in half. That's just what football does. And that's why we love it so much. But that sense of urgency, that sense of like, I got to get back to where I was. That was awesome. Get me back out there again. That is what's driving these guys to really compete at this point in spring training. And obviously through the summer, they'll do the same, and through the fall, of course. But it's like these guys all, obviously the young guys especially, want more of that. And the old guys, he didn't say this, but like, they're running out of time. You got to go. Like, do you want to play or not? Because you got to go right now. And they also know, what it's like. And so all of these guys are really just chomping at the bit. Like, I need to get back out on the field, especially the guys come back from injury. I mean, I can't even imagine. Like, they're like, literally, let me play right now. And so all of that's creating this iron sharpen iron. everyone's getting better because of competition kind of thing. I legitimately think this linebacker room will see probably the biggest jump in NCAA football in the Big 12, and it will like significantly help Iowa State not only in conference play but potentially in some sort of a postseason situation, be it a conference championship or the playoffs. The secondary, obviously, something that might take a step back, just due to the amount of guys we lost, and how prevalent they were. But this linebacker room is looking to make a huge, huge jump. They're not the only guys, though. Like I've kind of talked about how I love this offensive group, but we've talked more about the tight ends than anything. Let's take a look at the running backs because they're young and they really could make an impact next year. We're talking about that coming up right after this. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props, from three-pointers to steals to assists. FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. All right, we talked about the linebackers. Time to break down the running backs here at Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Jake Landry, running back coach from North Dakota State, has an opportunity to come in, speak to the media. And a lot of these questions were primarily about him as a coach and his background. And to be completely honest, super interesting. I love the way he speaks. You know, I think he speaks with confidence. I think he speaks with a level of intelligence. Not quite what I expected. For some reason, I was just expecting some guy who was gonna be super loud, super like just a meathead type of guy. And I'm not sure why I thought that, but that's where my brain went. But hearing him speak, it was very like methodical, almost calculated. It felt like almost, which was not bad. It's not a bad thing by any means. It's just not what I was expecting. And so then to kind of hear him answer more and more of these questions, I can see where the room would rally around a coach like this. And outside of the coaches about, or the questions about his previous, coaching career and who's his mentor, and obviously had a relationship or has a friendship with Noah Pauley, and their time, I believe that was Minnesota Duluth. And so what was that like, and what's it like now, and all of that. Outside of those kinds of questions, Carson Hansen, Abu Sama, what's going on there? What are we looking at here? Because two really good running backs, but who's getting what and what's the scene looking like? Now, obviously, I don't have to remind you because this was arguably one of the most like iconic games in Iowa State history, maybe. Carson Hansen was the main back last year, but before that, Abu Sama absolutely just tore up the field against Kansas State. It was snowy, and it was like, I cannot take my eyes off this television. Went for 276 yards. He had a 3-touchdown game. I think he scored from like 50 or more on every single one. I don't have it up in front of me, but it was electric. And so everyone was like, this guy's the next. I mean, Breece Hall really is kind of the name that Iowa State fans probably would use. But just like a really, really good running back, whoever you want to plug in there, Barry Sanders, just pick anybody. And so then to see him kind of take that back seat this last year was, I don't want to say disappointing, but I just don't think very many people saw that coming. But that is what happened. And so that was kind of a bit of a question. Obviously, running back room a little bit bigger than Carson Hansen and Abu Sama, but it's like, what what can we expect? Is it gonna be Carson Hansen again? Is it gonna be Abu Sama this year? What are we really looking at here? And really, Jake Landry was basically like, we just need to see some consistency from these guys. Like, both are capable of being number one backs, but also both struggle in their own ways. Um, and I'm not going to really get into it because, to be honest, I think they're both really, really good, and that's for the coaches to break down. But there kind of was a feel of like these guys just got to come in and earn it. Like they got to go. And he talked a little bit about how competitive that room is and how tight knit that room is, which is great. That's good news. But like he's like, we got to figure out this consistency thing, and that was kind of, it meant different things for both of these guys. When asked about it, Carson Hansen was kind of more on the complete running back side of things, with like his pass protection, understanding what the defense is gonna do, picking up, that kind of that free guy. Because when you think about it, like 11 on 11, but one guy's got the ball, so it's kind of 11 on 10. One guy's got to be unblocked unless somehow you have a guy who can block two people. But for the most part, it's going to be 11 on 10. And who's that free rusher that's going to get through, which is still a hat on a hat. But nonetheless, that was kind of his emphasis of like, what do I need to really get consistent at and just really punch into, like, this is not something that ever really slips. And then Abu Sama kind of was more on the IQ side of things. And I know that really the picking up that free rusher is an IQ ding, but also like there's more to being a running back than just blocking or just running. And so to me, it sounded like Abu was a little bit like the whole thing. Let's worry about the whole thing here. But I don't know. That's just my interpretation of it. And so I think this running back room is really solid. And I think I said this, and it's definitely how I feel. I wouldn't hate if Iowa State targeted a running back in this spring transfer portal. Maybe it is just to step up the level of that game, of that room a little bit. And yeah, I do think they have to fit the culture. But when asked about it, kind of some of these younger guys or some of these backups, obviously like Dylan Lee, I believe he was asked a little bit about River Peppers. Young guys, yes, young guys, but never really had a lot to say. Like when we were talking about, like, I think it was the offensive line room. That one we heard a lot about those younger guys, and for the running back room, it just felt very short. And now, yes, I know, I understand that Coach Landry, is new to the program, and so probably not super familiar with these guys yet. But there is an element of like you can see, and so I would like to see them target maybe a running back in the portal, but I don't think that's. I think we got guys, in Carson Hansen and Abu Sama. And the great part is this was mentioned, in I think it was Abu Sama's interview or media availability, just how young this room is. I mean, Sama and I think Sama and Hansen are both juniors, and they're the oldest ones really in this room. You got a couple of redshirt sophomores, but by class, that's awesome. You love to see how young they are and just how much development can be made. A senior, I mean, they're going to make some room. They're going to make some improvements, but a lot of what we've seen is kind of potentially what they have. These younger guys have the opportunity to really grow their game, and it seems like both of them are just super locked in. And on the IQ side of things, like the really the limit to that is like there isn't one. Like you can just keep getting smarter and smarter and smarter and understanding defenses and all of that. So that's exciting because I think they both are very physically capable of playing the position. It's just the mental side. And I'm not saying the mental side is maybe like a weak position of their game, but if you can grow that, boom. Like how much does putting 10 pounds onto your bicep curl do? Other than maybe preventing a fumble 1 out of 20 times, an extra 1 out of 20 times, versus what does understanding Tampa 2 when they're going to blitz a safety, which would be wild. But like being able to pick up on something like that, boom, you've already helped the team significantly more, in my opinion. You just see the greatest return on investment in that kind of area. The return on investment for hitting subscribe on this channel is basically limitless because it is entirely free, and you help prove that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. I appreciate you all for sticking around to this point. Can't wait to talk more football as things heat up with this spring transfer portal this week. Until next time, Cyclone fans, sayonara.